Welcome to our channel Infinite Tale Studio. For more stories and support our channel, please subscribe.
The exact way I read it out to you that night, I'm reading it to you today. Listen carefully. The details regarding the ship Gloria Scott and its voyage. Set sail from Falmouth on October 8, 1855. Destination was latitude north 15 degrees 20 minutes, longitude west 25 degrees 14 minutes.
It was a cold December night, and we were sitting face to face in front of the fireplace. By we, I mean Holmes and me. Suddenly, Holmes spoke up.
Watson, take a look at these papers.
I looked up from my newspaper and saw a rolled-up bundle of papers in his hand. As he untied the knot, he said,
I think you should read these over.
What are they?
These are all the documents related to the Gloria Scott. And here's a piece of paper with a few lines scribbled on it. After reading this, Mr. Trevor, a justice of the peace, died in a very astonishing way.
Died?
Strange, but true.
Holmes handed me a grayish slip of paper. I took it and read. The supply of game for London is going steadily up. Headkeeper Hudson, we believe, has been now told to receive all orders for fly paper and for preservation of your hen pheasant's life. Means the demand for hunted animal and bird meat in London has recently gone up. Therefore, the supplier and headkeeper Hudson has been instructed to arrange for fly paper and increase the breeding of hens. I couldn't make heads or tails of this. What's so funny?
You look incredibly confused.
That's only natural. I can't wrap my head around how such an ordinary message could strike fear into anyone's heart. If anything, it's almost laughable.
You're somewhat right, Watson. But the truth is, after reading this note, a man of strong build and mental fortitude collapsed unconscious, as if he hadn't just read a piece of paper, but had been struck in the head with the butt of a revolver. And that's why he lost consciousness.
You're definitely piquing my interest, Holmes. But why the sudden thought that I should know about this case?
Because this was my very first case.
Hearing that really took me by surprise. I had been dying to know how and when such a brilliant mind first started investigating the criminal underworld. It seemed my impossibly clever friend was in a storytelling mood today.
I've never told you the story of Victor Trevor, have I? During my 2 years in college, he was my only friend. You know me, Watson. I don't really like mingling with people much, and I didn't back then either. I preferred sitting alone in my dorm room, lost in complex thoughts. I didn't really have any friends or acquaintances among my classmates. I did some boxing in tournaments, even won a medal or two, but eventually, I lost touch with everyone. But how I met Trevor was quite bizarre. Listen to this. One holiday morning, I was heading to the church next to the college. Right at the church door, a bull terrier came out of nowhere and clamped its jaws onto my ankle. It happened before I could even process it. I didn't even get a chance to defend myself. Later, I found out the owner of that sensible dog was Victor Trevor. Such an incident is hardly the ideal way for two people to become friends. But that's exactly when our friendship began. For the next 10 days, I was bedridden, and Victor would visit my room regularly to check on me. At first, he'd just sit for a minute and leave, but as time went on, his visits got longer. Within a few days, we became really good friends. A brilliant, bright, energetic guy, endlessly enthusiastic about everything from his studies to his work. And yet, he befriended a lazy, unmotivated guy like me. But I did notice one similarity between us. Just as he was my only friend, I was his only friend.
And then?
Finally, one day he invited me to his country home. They lived in a small village called Donathorpe. Victor's dad was a man of strong personality. His influence and power matched his character. He was the local justice of the peace and a pretty major landowner in the area. Their house was a massive, old-fashioned, two-story brick building set on a huge estate. The exterior walls had wooden beams with intricate carvings. A driveway went straight from the main gate to the front door, and there was excellent wild duck shooting in the fens. Inside, there was a small but well-stocked library, and best of all, a great cook. So, as you can imagine, everything I needed was right there. I figured it wouldn't be a bad vacation. Victor's mother had passed away many years ago. He had an older sister, but I heard she died of diphtheria a few years back. So, the family in that house consisted solely of the father and his only son. I actually liked Victor's father quite a bit, Watson. You couldn't say the man was highly educated in a traditional sense, but you could tell just by looking at him that he was physically and mentally a very robust character. He might not have read a lot of books, but he had traveled the world, and he hadn't forgotten a single thing he learned from those experiences. His skin was tanned from the sun, and he had a pair of intense, piercing blue eyes. He had a great reputation in the village as a kind and charitable man.
Everything sounds fine, but where's the mystery?
Elementary, my dear Watson. Now I'll get to the real story. One evening, Senior and Junior Trevor and I were sitting in the drawing room chatting. Victor started telling his dad all sorts of stories about my methods of observation. Junior Trevor enthusiastically described my amazing abilities, but I could clearly tell the old man wasn't buying it. He thought his son was exaggerating. Hearing it all, he just laughed.
Well then, Mr. Holmes, let's see you use this special power of yours on me. See, I'm not a bad subject. I've had a lot of experiences in my life. So tell me, by looking at me, what secrets can you deduce about me?
I can't say I can deduce a whole lot, but yes, I can clearly tell that you've been living in fear for the past year. You're likely anticipating some sort of personal attack or assault.
Wow, you hit the nail on the head. About a year ago, we caught a group of poachers, but we had to let them go due to a lack of evidence. They threatened to kill us. One of my colleagues has already been attacked by them. Since then, I've been a bit cautious and keep a weapon handy. But I really can't figure out how you knew that.
By looking at your walking stick. You have a very handsome stick. Judging by it, it's not more than a year old. But despite it being new, you had the head hollowed out and filled with melted lead. That made the head so heavy and solid that it could easily be used as a weapon. From what I've gathered about your character, I can tell you wouldn't go through all that trouble unless you sensed a very real threat.
All right. Anything else?
You did a lot of boxing in your youth, right?
Spot on. But how did you know that? Is my nose a little crooked?
No. I figured it out because that kind of flat, thick ear cartilage is only found in boxers. Also, you were involved in mining and digging for many years of your life.
Right again. My profession used to be managing a gold mine. Everything you see here came from mining money.
You've been to New Zealand, and you've been to Japan as well. And finally, I'll say that at some point in your life, you were very close to someone whose initials were J.A., but later on, you wanted to forget him.
Sherlock, how in the world did you know that?
I was just about to tell him. But after hearing my last remark, he just froze. Then, he slowly got up from his chair, a wild look in his eyes, stared at me for a few seconds, and collapsed face first onto the floor. As you can imagine, Watson, we were completely unprepared for something like this. Victor and I rushed over immediately.
Dad! Dad! Dad, what happened to you?
Mr. Trevor. Mr. Trevor, are you all right? We loosened his collar and splashed some water on his face. He regained consciousness. He gasped for air and finally sat up. Then, he said,
I hope I didn't scare you boys too much. My body might still look tough, but I've gotten weak on the inside, so it's not too surprising that this happens to me occasionally. I don't know how you got such astonishing abilities, but I'll tell you this. With the talent you have, you could be one of the greatest detectives in the world. Detectives who just look for ordinary evidence are like babies compared to you. Understand? Just babies.
Hearing that man's words that day was the first time I realized that the art of observation, which I'd only ever seen as a hobby, could actually open up a brand new career path for me. But I didn't have time to think about all that right then, because the poor man looked absolutely shattered. I apologize. Did I accidentally hit a nerve?
You might have unknowingly touched a very sensitive spot in my mind. How did you know all of that?
Even though he tried to say it casually, I saw the fear in his eyes. I said, "It was very simple, sir. When you reached out to pick up your wine glass, your sleeve pulled back. That's when I saw a tattoo under your wrist, but the skin around it was scarred. I realized you had tried to scrub the letters away, meaning this person was close to you, which is why you tattooed their initials on your arm yourself, but then you tried desperately to forget them."
Incredible. What an amazing eye you have. You are absolutely right. But let's not talk about this anymore. Come on.
On the surface, everything seemed fine after that day, but the gentleman started looking at me with suspicion. Even Victor told me,
Man, ever since you showed off that magic trick, my dad just can't act normal around you. He's always worried you're going to uncover some hidden secret.
The gentleman didn't say anything out loud, sure, but those things were weighing so heavily on his mind that even if he tried, he couldn't hide his anxiety. Finally, I realized my presence was making him very uncomfortable. I decided I shouldn't stay there any longer. Right around that time, something strange happened.
What happened?
I'll tell you. I didn't understand it then, but later I realized how significant the event was. We were sitting in the garden chairs that morning, and right then, the house servant came and said a man had arrived. The guy didn't give a name. He just said he wanted to talk. Hearing this, Mr. Trevor said,
All right, send him here.
A little while later, the man who stood before us showed no signs of education in his manners or the way he moved. A gaunt face with a few days' worth of stubble, a cunning smile, yellow teeth. Overall, a pretty scruffy-looking guy. The moment Mr. Trevor saw him, he bolted from his chair and ran inside the house. I couldn't quite figure out what was going on. He came back shortly, though, and I could smell brandy on his breath. Mr. Trevor asked the man,
Well, what can I do for you?
You don't recognize me, do you?
Wait, aren't you Hudson?
You got it. When was the last time we saw each other? It's been about 30 years, hasn't it? Look how times have changed. You've got this huge house today, and I'm still wandering the streets. No matter what I have today, I haven't forgotten my old days.
Then Mr. Trevor took a few steps toward the guy and whispered something in his ear. Then he spoke again in his normal voice.
Go, head to the kitchen. Tell the cook I said to give you some food. And don't worry, I'll definitely find you some work right here in my house. Go on.
Thank you, sir. I've been working on a cargo ship for the last 2 years and just got back to the country. I'm sick of working on ships. I need some rest. So I figured I'd come here. I was certain, sir, that either you or Mr. Beddoes would give me a job.
Mr. Trevor's face instantly grew even more guarded.
You know where Mr. Beddoes is?
I do, sir. I know exactly where all my friends are.
Saying that, the guy headed toward the kitchen, and Mr. Trevor told us,
I've known the guy for a long time. He used to be a deckhand on a ship.
After finishing his sentence, he went inside the house. About an hour later, When we went inside, we saw Mr. Trevor dead drunk, passed out on the living room sofa. I knew right then that something was seriously wrong to make the gentleman this agitated, and he was drinking like that just to mask his anxiety. It didn't sit well with me, so I packed up and headed back to London without delay. Only the first week of that long vacation had passed, so you can imagine, Watson, I had to spend the rest of my break sitting in my dorm room. Honestly, I just didn't want to make things awkward for Victor. About a week before the vacation was over, I got a telegram from Victor.
Terrible danger. Need you here. Come immediately.
Obviously, I headed out without wasting any time. Victor was waiting for me at the station with a dog cart. The poor guy looked like he was going through hell. He had lost weight, and the exhaustion on his face was obvious. We headed toward their house. Victor told me.
Why? What happened? His condition has gotten really bad, which is why I sent for you. I don't even know if I'll see him alive by the time we get back. I left him under the doctor's care just to come get you.
What exactly happened in those few days?
That's exactly what I was wondering, Watson. Hearing that sudden news definitely shocked me. I asked Victor, but what brought this on?
That's just it. Remember that weird-looking guy who showed up the morning before you left? Believe me, that man is a devil. From the moment he stepped foot in our house, we haven't had a single moment of peace. Looking at Dad, it's like some invisible force is just draining the life right out of him. I still don't understand how a good, kind man like my father fell into the clutches of a scumbag like that. Anyway, I feel a little relieved now that you're here. I think you're the only one who can point us in the right direction right now. My dad made that guy the gardener, but he wasn't happy with that. And you know what Dad did next? He put the guy in charge of looking after the whole estate. From then on, the guy started doing whatever he pleased. It reached a boiling point. The nerve of him. He stood right in front of me and cursed my dad out. I slapped him right across the face. He left the house right then, but he wasn't gone for good. Later that afternoon, he talked to Dad again. I don't know what was said, but Dad told me,
Victor, apologize to Hudson.
I am not apologizing to that man. Please tell me, why are you showing so much mercy to such a filthy scumbag?
You don't know the trouble I'm in. There are so many things I want to tell you, but I just can't. You'll find out everything, though. One way or another, I will tell you everything. Just believe this one thing, Victor. Your father has never wanted anything bad for you. You are my life.
Dad hugged me. I realized there was something terrifying going on in his mind. He spent the rest of that day locked in his study. The next day, Hudson came back to our house. He said,
I'm leaving here. I'm going to Hampshire to see Mr. Beddoes. I reckon he'll be just as happy to see me as you were.
I hope you aren't leaving with any hard feelings.
Well, your son still hasn't apologized.
You really treated him very poorly. You should apologize to him right now.
Dad, I have tolerated all of this man's insults and disrespect for the past month. I will not throw away my self-respect. Fine, then I'll settle my own scores. I'm off. We'll be even now.
Saying that, Hudson walked out of the room. But the final blow came yesterday evening.
What kind of blow?
Yesterday evening, a letter came for Dad. Reading it, he started frantically slapping his forehead with both hands, running around the room like a madman, screaming,
I'm ruined. I'm completely ruined. It's all over. Everything is over.
Right after that, Dad just collapsed. By the time I picked him up and laid him on the sofa, his face was all twisted. I knew it was a stroke. I didn't waste a second and called our family doctor. He examined him and said he was getting paralyzed. He still hadn't regained consciousness when I left the house today. I don't know if I'll even see my dad alive when we get back.
But tell me one thing, Victor. What exactly was written in that letter that made your dad so agitated?
Man, that's the real mystery. I read it, and there's nothing there. In fact, what's written is bizarrely ridiculous.
As we were talking, we finally reached the front of the house. It wasn't even evening yet, but I could see the black curtains had been drawn over the windows. The meaning was crystal clear. We hurried to the front door, and as soon as we opened it, a gentleman dressed in black came out. Victor asked him,
When did it happen, Doctor?
Just a little while after you left the house.
Did he regain consciousness?
Yes, he did. Right before he passed.
Did he say anything for me?
He uttered just one single sentence. All the papers are kept in the back drawer of the Japanese cabinet.
The doctor and Victor both went toward his father's room. And I sat there, trying to piece the whole timeline together in my head. A few things were already clear to me.
Why was Mr. Trevor so scared?
There could only be one reason. He definitely had some dark past that nobody knew about. And besides, why did he react like that about the tattoo on his arm that day? And that letter from Fordingbridge, the one that scared him to death. That's when it hit me. Mr. Beddoes lives in Fordingbridge, and that's exactly where Hudson went to meet him. Just as he was blackmailing Mr. Trevor with some terrifying secret from the past.
He surely went there to blackmail Mr. Beddoes the exact same way.
Exactly.
But Victor told you the letter was ridiculous. Why would someone die of fright from reading a funny letter?
Victor must have read the letter wrong, or he completely missed the important details. Meaning, the letter was written in some sort of code. I needed to see it with my own eyes to check for any hidden messages. Anyway, about an hour later, my friend came in holding a bunch of papers. He sat down in a chair opposite me and handed me this note. The exact one you just read. At first, I thought it made no sense either. I was just as confused as you were. But I kept reading it over and over because I had a gut feeling there was a serious meaning hidden inside. Plus, Hudson's name was right there in the letter.
So, after trying a bunch of different methods, the solution suddenly clicked. If you take the first word, skip the next two, and keep the fourth word, then skip two more and keep the next, it makes a whole new sentence. For example, the first sentence is, "The supply of game for London is going steadily up." I skipped the supply of and kept the word game. Skipped the next two words, for London, and kept is. Skipped the next two words, going steadily, and kept up. So what did that make? The game is up. If you arrange the whole thing like that, it spells out a message that would terrify anyone who received it. Arranged like that, the message read, "The game is up. Hudson has told all. Fly for your life." Meaning, the jig is up. He spilled everything. Run if you want to live.
Now, when I explained this to Victor, he said,
Oh, so it was blackmail. Then Dad's terror makes total sense. Losing his honor was way more painful to him than dying. But what about all these other words?
Those were just used to hide the real words so that no one except your father would understand it. Anyway, do you know anything about this Beddoes?
I'm not sure. Now that you mention it, I remember Dad used to get invitations from him to shoot over his preserves every autumn.
Well, now we just need to figure out what this blackmail was all about.
Even though I'm ashamed to admit it, I don't want to hide anything from you. Look here. Dad wrote this when he realized danger was coming. This is what was hidden behind the Japanese cabinet. I don't have the courage to read it myself. Could you please read it to me?
Watson, the exact way I read it out that night, I'll read it to you today. Listen closely. The details regarding the ship Gloria Scott and its voyage. Set sail from Falmouth on October 8, 1855. Destination was latitude north 15 degrees 20 minutes. longitude west, 25 degrees 14 minutes. The expected date of arrival was November 6th.
My dear, dear son, I know full well that a day of ultimate shame awaits me in the near future. So, I am trying to explain everything honestly and clearly. And let me say right off the bat, the fear I feel today isn't the fear of the law or of being punished, nor is it the fear of losing my reputation in the eyes of the public. Instead, it's the fear of falling so low in your eyes. It breaks my heart over and over again. You love me so much. You respect me so much. But after knowing all this, will you still be able to love or respect me? I don't know if you can. By the time you read these words, I might not be around anymore. And everything I'm writing here is the absolute truth, down to the last letter. Make sure no one else gets their hands on this letter except you. Once you're done reading, you must burn it. My name isn't Trevor. In my youth, my name was James. Now you probably understand why I panicked the way I did that day when your incredibly smart college friend, Sherlock Holmes, mentioned the tattooed initials on my arm. I started working at a bank in London, and that's where I eventually got caught stealing. For breaking the laws of the country, I was sentenced to life in prison, along with an order to be transported to a penal colony. I know that as you read this, your face is probably turning red with disgust and anger, but believe me, I was driven to steal out of sheer desperation. I was expecting a very large sum of money to come my way soon. I figured I would use that money to replace what I had stolen before anyone even noticed. But to my terrible luck, the money I was supposed to get never came. And on top of that, the bank had an early audit, and my theft was discovered. If this had happened today, things might have turned out differently. They might have taken a lot of things into consideration. But the laws back then were incredibly strict, so what happened, happened. In a cruel twist of fate, on my 23rd birthday, I was put on the Australia-bound ship, the Gloria Scott, with chains on my hands and a rope around my waist. The year was 1855. Because the ships normally used for transporting prisoners were tied up with the Crimean War, the government was forced to use smaller, commercial cargo ships to transport convicts. The Gloria Scott was one of those ships. It used to bring tea from China to England. It looked like an old-fashioned ship, but it was pretty sturdy. There were 38 of us prisoners on that ship. There were 26 crew members, 18 soldiers, a captain, 3 mates, a doctor, a mechanic, and 4 guards. The walls of the tiny cells they kept us in were quite thin, so if someone talked loudly in one cell, you could hear it clearly from the next. From the very first day, I kept a close eye on the prisoner in the cabin to my right. He was a young guy, clean-shaven, but the most striking thing about him was his height. You rarely see men that tall. He must have been around 6.5 feet. Right from the start, I knew this guy was built differently. While the rest of us prisoners were sitting around agonizing over our futures, this guy was strutting around completely unfazed, as if nothing had happened. It was like watching a fireball wandering through a blizzard. One night, I jolted awake when I heard a tapping sound on the adjoining wall. Then came a voice.
"Hello, mate. What's your name? How'd you end up here?"
I introduced myself and asked for his in return.
"My name is Jack Prendergast. You don't have to remember the last name. My friends just call me by my first name, and for various reasons, everyone remembers my name. You will too."
The name sounded familiar. I had most likely heard about his case. He came from a good family, incredibly talented, but he used those talents to con people. He had defrauded numerous London businessmen out of millions of pounds. When I brought this up, he just laughed.
"Well, since you remember my case so well, I'm sure you remember another little detail? I had roughly a few £1,000,000 to my name, right?"
Yeah, I mean, that's what the papers said. but they also said none of it was ever found.
You know where that money is now? Right in the palm of my hand. I have more money in my hands than you have hairs on your head, understand? And remember one thing. When you have money, you can do whatever you want. Absolutely anything. You seriously think a guy like me is just going to rot as a helpless prisoner on this rust bucket of a ship? I've got a few partners on this ship. By bribing the crew, I've already got them in my pocket. Not just them. I've got the second mate and 2 of his guards on our side as well.
But what exactly is our job?
Nothing much. We just need to eliminate the soldiers. We just have to make those redcoats of theirs a little bit redder, that's all.
But they have weapons.
So do we, my friend. I've already armed a lot of the prisoners, except you. For now, do me a favor. Talk to the guy in the cabin next to yours. See if we can get him on our team too.
I did as he asked and spoke to the kid on my left. I saw that he was in the exact same boat as me. He had been given a heavy sentence for a minor crime. The kid's name was Evans. He agreed to join our conspiracy almost immediately. Within the next day, we managed to pull every single prisoner into our group, except for 2. One of them was a total coward, and the other was sick with jaundice. Honestly, right from the get-go, we knew our numbers were so strong that no one could stop us from taking over the ship. Meanwhile, under the guise of serving food, the mechanic came to every one of our cells and handed us a revolver and a few rounds of ammunition. No one suspected a thing. Now our only opposition was the captain, 2 mates, 18 soldiers, and the doctor. Jack ordered us to be ready for any situation. Jack also added that we would attack suddenly under the cover of darkness. A situation like that did present itself, of course, and more quickly than we expected. One evening, the doctor came to check on a sick patient, and his hand brushed against the revolver hidden under the mattress. The doctor completely panicked and started screaming his lungs out. "There's a pistol here! Right here! There's a pistol! Help! Help! There's a pistol here! Help! Help!" Seeing no other option, the sick prisoner sprang up and wrestled him down. Jack had his eyes on that cabin, and he rushed in too. Together, they tied the doctor tightly to the bed and shoved a handkerchief into his mouth. The doctor had left the door leading to the deck wide open, so Jack and the rest of us spilled out. In the blink of an eye, gunfire blew the skulls right off 2 soldiers. A few more soldiers were standing in front of the engine room, but before they could even lower their rifles from their shoulders, they met the same fate. We rushed toward the captain's quarters. The moment the captain's door opened, a massive gunshot made us jump. We found the captain lying dead on the floor. He had a revolver in his hand and a hole right above his ear. We realized he had killed himself out of fear. More soldiers were gunned down the exact same way. We figured our job was done. After being locked up for so long, the sudden thrill of freedom made us act like maniacs. Just then, an explosion shook the entire ship. We stood there stunned for a moment. Once the smoke cleared, we saw several of our own men lying on the deck, covered in blood. A few of us ran out and saw about 10 soldiers standing on the deck, rifles aimed. The ones who were still out of our reach. They had probably been hiding. Now, a real, deadly battle kicked off. You've got to hand it to Jack's skills. He single-handedly wiped out almost all those soldiers. We helped him out, of course.
Finish off the rest of the enemy. Never leave an enemy alive.
But a few of us, including myself, refused to go along with that. Everything that had happened so far was for a reason. But slaughtering men in cold blood now made absolutely no sense. We had our freedom, and we were perfectly happy with that. Jack got annoyed, cursed us out, and told us to take a lifeboat and get off the ship. We agreed to that right away. We figured the coast of Africa was about 700 miles to the east. The wind was blowing from the north, so if we headed for Sierra Leone in Africa, we'd hit dry land relatively fast. So we set off. The distance between us and the ship was steadily growing. Evans and I were chatting while rowing, when suddenly an enormous explosion made us jump, and we looked back at the Gloria Scott. We saw the ship completely engulfed in raging flames. Clouds of black smoke surrounded the vessel. We watched in sheer horror as the ship slowly began to sink. We quickly turned the boat around and rowed back toward the Gloria Scott. If anyone had survived, we had to save them. By the time we got close, there was barely any trace of the ship left. Right then, we heard someone screaming in agony. Someone was crying out for help. Straining our eyes in the dark, we spotted a man barely staying afloat, clinging to a piece of driftwood some distance away. We rowed over quickly and somehow dragged him into the boat. We saw that a large part of the man's body had been badly burned. We started our journey again. The next morning, we found out the man's name was Hudson, one of the crew members from the ship.
This is the story of the darkest chapter of my life. The next day, a ship named the Hotspur picked us up. We told them we were passengers from a sunken ship. The captain of the ship bought it. The Gloria Scott was reported missing, and to this day, no one knows its true fate. Once we reached Sydney, Evans and I started a new life. We started working in the gold mines, and we built new identities for ourselves there. After 20 long years, we returned to England and bought land, houses, and property. We had forgotten everything and were living in peace. Until suddenly, after 20 years, that man from the sea returned, dragging our burned past right back to us. You can only imagine how it felt. We never in our wildest dreams thought he'd find us and blackmail us, making our lives a living hell like this. That ungrateful devil. I hope you won't misunderstand me. If you can, please forgive me and pray for my soul to find peace. Take care. Yours truly, your father. And there's no need for any other introductions.
And that is the entire mystery, Watson. This is exactly what I read to my friend Trevor. Obviously, he was completely heartbroken. After finishing college, he went out to the Terai for tea planting, and I hear he's doing quite well. The police never found any trace of Mr. Beddoes or Hudson, and no official complaints were ever filed anywhere. My guess is that Beddoes couldn't take Hudson's torment anymore, killed him, and then took off with all the money, fleeing the country. Well, those are the facts of the case, Doctor, and if they are of any use to your collection, I am sure they are readily available at your service.
So, Holmes, how exactly did you know that it would be of use to me?
Elementary, my dear Watson. It's elementary.